Hi everyone, this is Tracy Wagner with Bangert Inc., and I wanted to share a different way that you can track vendor compliance records specifically for your insurance compliance. Let's go and take a look at my current setup for compliance. Now, I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of vendor compliance. My lovely colleague Sarah created a 9-part series explaining all the ins and outs of vendor compliance. So if you need a refresher, please go and watch that video. For our purposes, we're just going to go and look and see what we already have set up for vendor insurance compliance. I'm going to go into the compliance definitions, and you can see that we have just the standard insurance compliance definition. And then under compliance types for insurance, you can see I have 5 different insurance types that I'm wanting to track: automobile, GL, excess, umbrella, and work comp. So this is your typical way of tracking your different insurance records. And this is a very mainstream way to do this. But in doing it this way, every time you create a vendor, specifically a subcontractor vendor, you're going to be kicking off 5 different compliance records. And so if we go into purchasing and compliance records, you can see that my list is starting to get really long. I have over 700 compliance records in here right now. And that means that there are 5 records for one vendor that I need to go and edit their effective date and possibly put the COI onto that record as well, attach it to it. So some companies think that that is a little bit overkill, especially when a certificate of insurance maybe has all of your different insurance types on it and they all have the same expiration date. So why are we tracking 5 different records? So one way you can get around this is basically creating a new compliance type called all insurance. And so that's what we're going to do. But before we do that, I'm going to go over to platform services and custom fields. And I want to show you what I've created so far. I have created 3 custom fields so far for the compliance record object: auto expiration date, GL expiration date, and workers' comp expiration date. So basically what's going to happen is when a compliance record is created, when I create a new vendor, we'll go into compliance records, just view one of these. I want an additional section down here called expiration dates, and this is where I'm going to track those expiration dates. So right now they're not on here, so we need to come back, and so I've created these 3. Let's create one more for umbrella, just for demonstration purposes here. Your object is going to be compliance. Let's find compliance record. And we're going to do a date. And we're going to call this umbrella expiration date. And the section where it appears, I had already on the other records created this section, so it's called expiration dates. And then we're going to save that. So now I've got 4 custom fields that are going to appear on my compliance record. So I'm going to go back to purchasing and setup and compliance types. I am going to create a new compliance type called all insurance. So the compliance definition is going to be insurance, and the numbering sequence, we're just going to use vendor compliance, and we don't need any of these other fields filled out. And right here it's saying, do you want to include any custom fields on this record? Well, I sure do. I want to include all those custom fields that I just created. And then we're going to save this. So now I have an all insurance compliance type. Now, if I was doing this in the real world, I would then go and inactivate these other insurance ones because I don't want these to fire off anymore. But for demonstration purposes, I'm not going to do that. So we've got this all insurance compliance type. Okay, so now let's go create a new vendor. We'll go into AP, create a new vendor, and we're going to call this guy Bobcat Service. And I do want to mention that we have things set up a little bit differently. We are encouraging companies to not use this vendor type here. I see that we do have options in here right now, but normally we are encouraging you not to use this vendor type that comes with Sage Intacct. These vendor types are tied to 1099 information, and when you change that on a vendor, it can cause issues with your 1099. So we are highly encouraging not to use this type ID anymore and to create this custom vendor type right here. This is a custom field. And then because of that, when we go to our compliance definition for insurance, we now are not automatically tracking, or we're not automatically generating compliance records when a new vendor is created, because we do not have the option to do the automatic by type for our custom vendor type. And so we have do not generate here. And then we have a smart event put into place that whenever a new vendor is created with the subcontractor custom field, then the insurance records are created. So I'm going to go in and create a new vendor. Already in him. Okay, so Bob's Bobcat Service. He's a subcontractor. Like I said, we're using this. This is what the smart event is going to look to when it's determining whether or not this vendor needs compliance records. And we're going to save this vendor. Okay, so let's look and see what number he was. Bob's Bobcat, he is 139. So now I'm going to go to purchasing and compliance records. Let's look for that. Oh, he's right on top. Okay, great. So here is that all insurance record that was just created when we created our vendor. So normally you would be going in here and editing this, and let's see here. You can see our custom fields appeared down here. So basically when this is created, I'm going to want to pull up this vendor's certificate of insurance, and I'm going to go in here and fill these out. But an important note is that when you are going to pay a vendor and you have your compliance definition set up to either error or give a warning, your AP payment section is looking at this expiration date right here. It's not going to be looking at these expiration dates. So what I would suggest is, obviously, if all of these expiration dates are the same, that is the date that you would put in for your expiration date. Now, if they're different, I would put in the most recent expiration date, or the one that's coming up the soonest. And so that way you always have the most recent expiration date on here, and that will trigger your warnings for you. Okay, so if I looked at this guy's certificate of insurance, we'll just say that everything is expiring in 12/31/26. And then on this expiration date, I'm going to go ahead and put that in there. You can add your attachments here. So I know you might have different COIs depending on who this vendor uses for their insurance. Maybe they have 2 or 3 different COIs. You can most definitely attach multiple COIs, certificates of insurance, onto this record. We can just add right here. Depending on how you're filing things, filing your attachments, we'll just call this Bob's Bobcat 2026 COIs. And then we'll browse. And you know what? He's got a different umbrella COI. He has a different GL and work comp COI. So we're going to put both of those in here. And they will be in here for you to reference. Okay, so after you fill out whatever it is that your workflow is for filling out information, now I will mention you can have more custom fields. Maybe you want to track what their limit is for each one of these as well. You can have work comp limit, general liability limit. Any of these things that you need to track by type of insurance, you can definitely create custom fields for. So there's a lot of options for you here. But this basically is just going to keep your system a little bit cleaner. You just have this one record. Everybody, all the insurance expires on 12/31. That's how you would track it all on one record. Thanks for watching.